I had $1 for every time I've had a client of mine tell me that they're terrified of leaving a review or a video, even just picking up their phone, their camera and recording something they're doing on site, I would have a lot of dollars in the piggy bank. Now, it's a fear that many of us have, and it's a fear because we fabricate it. It's a fabricated fear. There's no difference in you talking to a friend about something that you've done than there is to you talking to your phone about something that you've done. The point being that we need to overcome these fears. And if we want to get good at telling our story, and like it or not, guys, we are in the education space. Your customers are coming for you for information, and you've got to give it to them. So there's no longer, you can't make it that excuse anymore. Oh, I'm not comfortable in front of the camera. It just doesn't fly anymore. All you got to do is pull your phone out and start recording. And it's a skill. You get better at it. So today you're joining us for the third and final part of the Mastering Storytelling series that I am conducting with a couple of our co-hosts, Dan and Dani, who are Australian celebrity tradies. You might know them from television shows like The Block or Healthy Homes Australia. They are also members over at the TradieMate Pro platform, where they are basically teaching this exactly. They're teaching guys how to be comfortable in front of the camera and teaching you how to better communicate your story. This is a fantastic series, guys, and if you've missed the first two, please go check them out, because the first one was all about laying foundations of content. The next one was about creating a strategy and a plan. And in this episode, we're tying it all together with overcoming your content creation fears and getting it done. So that's what this episode is all about, guys, and I know it's going to ring true to a lot of you. Please, I look forward to hearing your feedback and your comments. And I know a lot of you guys have had experience with this, so I'd love to hear more about it. Please head across to the Facebook group or wherever you see this post come out and leave a comment. Just let us know what your experience is, because I know for sure my experience is that a lot of our customers are terrified of it. I was terrified of it initially, and now I've sort of through doing this podcast, I suppose, I've become more and more comfortable with hearing my own voice and seeing myself on camera, but it wasn't always that way. So the point being there is it's a skill and you can learn it. Anyway, that's all from me. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. I hope you guys enjoy this series. Again, I look forward to hearing your comments, and I look forward to speaking to you over in the community. Ciao. Today's podcast has been proudly brought to you by Tradie Web Guys. Tradie Web Guys work with tradespeople only on their websites and marketing solutions to help them stand out from their competition. Everything from web design through to SEO, search engine marketing, content creation, you name it, guys. It is a customized solution for trade-based organizations, and it's fantastic. Head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/apply, fill in the form, and let's have a conversation.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Site Shed podcast. My name's Matt, and you're joining us for the third and final episode in the series that I'm conducting with Dan and Dani. Guys, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dan and Dani, you are from reddoorproject.com.au. You're builders down in Melbourne. You feature on television shows such as The Block and Healthy Homes Australia. You guys are joining us in this series here to talk a little bit about mastering storytelling. Been an interesting conversation so far. We've capitalized on how to lay the right foundations when we're talking about content creation. In the last episode, we spoke about the actual strategy and the plan, and how and Dani, you even gave us a visual representation of what yours looks like, which was awesome. And in this episode, we're going to talk about, in my experience, the one thing that most people out there, the biggest objection that I get when I talk to people about creating content is, I hate being in front of the camera. I'm afraid. Yep. I'm terrible in photos. I hate the sound of my own voice, blah, blah, blah. This is something that I think is going to be extremely relatable to everyone out there. So I'm really looking forward to diving further. Obviously, running a digital agency, I'm forever asking guys for content because we want to build it out on their websites. And I always say to them, if we have content, we can use it. If we don't have it, we can't use it. It's often a bit of a battle, to be honest. Even sometimes getting photos back is a battle, let alone when I'm asking them to do a tutorial on something they've done on an interesting project, or even just a walkthrough on something interesting that they've done. And it's amazing because some of these guys, if you saw some of the projects that these guys are doing, especially in Sydney, where you've got so many amazing, icons and, guys doing work on the Opera House and Centrepoint Tower and, building Barangaroo and all these amazing things. And like if they could just overcome that fear and that obstacle, which is, to be fair, fabricated, and just get it done, like it would be a formidable bit of content. That's certainly been my experience. Like when I started all this, I was never comfortable in front of the camera. Didn't necessarily like talking, although many people would probably argue that. But it is something that you learn, right? Like it's a skill, you improve it. So Dan, I'd love to have your experience, because I mean, you're a tradie, you're used to swinging hammers, and you know, now you're the James Dean of carpentry. So
wow.
I guess first and foremost, everyone out there, I was that tradie who was in fear of being on the camera, and it goes all the way back to filming my sister filming Dani and I on a handheld sort of, what was it, a camera, applying just a handy camera, and this was to apply for the block, so hardly anyone was going to see it, and I've never felt more awkward in my life. But we were determined to get on the block, so we finished filming in about 4 or 5 hours. The next day was the hardest, was to watch myself and hear myself back. And that was... you
kept on talking about, is that
how I really sound? I really struggled with that.
Can relate.
And then we actually sort of found ourselves getting onto the block, and that fear kind of went away. I don't know why. It took about 2 hours. There was big cameras in front of us while you're sort of working. Now, there was 2 ways to sort of control that. I thought I could pretend that the camera's there and get real nervous and shaky and bugger up. I could just block it out. And for me at that stage, I just tried to block everything else out. I just pretended I was on site by myself doing what I normally do. And that sort of helped control the fear or whatever it is that was trying to enter my mind. And that's pretty much how I learned. These days, I could have 2 or 3 cameras while I'm working, and it would just be, I wouldn't even worry about it. Because at the end of the day, all it is one big black machine on one other person's shoulder.
Yeah.
Don't think about anything else but the guy holding the camera. There's just one other person in you there at that time, or maybe 2 other people.
There isn't a million people on the other end of it watching.
and to be honest, like sometimes if I go on live television or live radio, I block out who's watching or how many people are listening.
Yeah.
And I just think about the 2 or 3 hosts I'm talking to, and it's just a conversation between all of us. Because the minute you start thinking about everything else is when you'll start to panic.
I know, Dani, we've spoken about this in another conversation about the difference between, you know, being on camera and like presenting in front of thousands of people.
Yeah.
And like, there's a big difference. Like when you're live in front of those people, like it's quite daunting. But at the end of the day, like you just said, Dan, when you're recording a video, and especially if it's a video that you're putting out on your Instagram channel or your Facebook channel, like, first of all, if you don't like it, you can delete it.
Delete it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Second of all, all you're doing is talking to a phone. And I think you just capitalize on something, Dan, which I think is really important. And I've mentioned this to a few guys, and it's made a really big difference to them in the past. It's when you're talking about, like if I said to you, okay, I want you to go and do a video, Dan, on the life of Gandhi. Like, you're going to shit yourself because you don't know anything about Gandhi, right?
Just did.
Yes.
But if I said to you, I want you to go and do a video on, you know, pitching roofs, mate, it's what you do. It's what you do for a living. You're an expert at it. Like, you could talk all day on this kind of thing.
Yep.
So I think, like, understanding that effectively all you're doing is talking to a camera about stuff that you know and are extremely good at. It's not as daunting as it might seem.
Yeah,
exactly right.
Exactly.
And like you just said, Matt, I mean, if you bugger it up once, go again. Try. If you don't want to do it that day, try again the next day.
Yeah.
And you're slowly going to get better and better and more comfortable at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of this stems from our own egos, right? And I've been guilty of that. And I can probably try and link it back to something like, you know, when you might be on holiday or you're trying to take a photo in some random location, might be a selfie or a photo with your partner, or you're doing something a bit silly. Yeah, right? And then some people have no fear doing that because they actually don't care what anyone around them is thinking. Do you know what? Because those people around you, they don't give a shit about you. They don't know you. They're not going to think about you tomorrow. They're not going to think of doing some ridiculous dance or pose. It's all in our head at the end of the day. So overcoming that is the first hurdle of understanding no one else actually cares that you're doing that or that you might feel a bit silly. That's really it.
It is a real fear, though. I mean, like I don't know if it's true or not, but we've all heard that saying where the two most feared things in people's lives are falling and public speaking, and falling second. They'd rather be, or death. They'd rather be dead than speak publicly.
That's me. I hate public speaking. I can
Right.
talk on a panel if I know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a topic that I'm passionate about, or it's a group discussion. Love it. Love that. But get me up as a keynote in front of people and I will be okay in the moment, but leading up to it, I'll be a mess. I just can't do it. So I choose not to put myself in those situations because it doesn't benefit me mentally and emotionally. So that is something to consider when you are doing content creation.
Depends on what you're talking about. I mean, if I could get up and talk about building to 1,000 people, it wouldn't bother me.
Yeah.
It's something you're talking about what you know.
Yeah. It's a fabricated fear, Dani. Again, like
it is,
like you're talking yourself into something that you shouldn't necessarily be afraid of.
Yeah.
Not to say that it's right or wrong. It's just the reality. It's part of being human. We all do it.
And it's always a rush, and I'm always glad that I do it. But I know that it causes me quite a significant amount of anxiety. So when creating content and trying to get over that hurdle around it and the ego, what it's telling you, I think you really need to think about what it is that you might do better and what you have to actually bring to the table. So for me, I know that I get really, really wound up and anxious around something like a keynote, like I've just said. But I can stand in front of a camera when it's not live, no one else is watching, and talk about something that I feel really strongly about, like we're talking to you now. So, I find that really quite easy to do. I just pretend that I'm talking to somebody who's really cares about what I have to say and is equally passionate about what I have to say. So pick the delivery, pick your delivery method, pick your preferred delivery method of what you think or know that you might be better at.
And so Dan, like when I was getting started with all this, like obviously like overcoming that initial fear, which you've just spoken about, but then looking beyond that. Okay. So now we're going to say, let's just say take for granted that all the listeners and viewers out there, we've convinced them. They're like, okay, fine. It's just a phone. It's just a black object. I can talk to it. I'm good at what I do. I know I'm good at what I do. I can talk to my friend about it. I can talk to my phone about it. It's as simple as that.
Yep.
How do you go about, I suppose, in order to keep yourself from, not screwing up? Like, what are some tactics and what are some things that you've learned over the years? And I'm sure this is always a journey as well. It's never a destination. But what are some of the things that you've been able to employ over the years that have helped you with that side of things?
Great question. Now, I'm going to give an example. If I get, it never happens, very rarely, if I get a script to do on the block, I absolutely crumble. Right. I can get a page, read it, and then say it to camera. So what I do, or what most people do, is you take the key points from that page that you have to get across, and then just simply put it into your own words.
Yeah.
That is how you're going to get through anything. It'll tell the story, what you're trying to say.
And I think,
that's very, very important because, if I have to read a whole script, I'm done. Scott Cam, he can read 3 pages and he can nail it word for word.
Really?
I've got no idea how he can do it. And actually, Dani's very good at that right now as well.
Yeah. So I can definitely look at a script, take its key points, and generally nail that script. But I think that's where you need to link it back to your own business. So when you are delivering or creating content, say if it's from behind a camera, choose a topic that you could talk about for 4 days. We know how to build stuff, and we can talk about that to anybody. Pick a topic about it, about design or architecture or building a structure, and we could talk about a million different topics within that for days on end. But give me something about something I don't really know much about, and I'm gonna crumble behind.
So with that in mind, is that part of your process? Is you say, okay, well, in this bit of content or in this piece, this series of content, we're going to break down every video, every recording, every post or whatever into bite-sized chunks where we're going to be talking about A, B, C, so and so, and then you stick to that. You know what you're going to be talking about in that, so then it just makes it easy.
Just simplify it. I mean, an example again was last year on the block. I had to talk about solar panels getting diverted to a battery, and it was so technical, the script, I could not nail it. So what I had to do is just break it down into 3 key points, and then I put it into my own words, and it came across so much better. And the actual supplier loved how I put it in my own voice.
Delivered it.
I
But I mean,
delivered it my own way, and they all wrapped with that.
and I think that's really important. Like, I know just through having guests on the show before, like some of them really love a script. And I refuse to do scripts on a podcast because it's conversation and it should be a conversation. And you can tell when something's scripted. Like we've done it a couple of times and it was terrible.
Yeah.
But I think that's really important, like to understand that, like in part of overcoming that fear, it's saying, okay, well, it's okay for me to do this in my own voice. It doesn't need to be polished. No one's expecting it to be polished. I'm a builder. I'm a plumber. Like no one's expecting, Brad Pitt. Like, so
for real that way, and people will relate to it more if you put it in your own language.
Absolutely,
being too polished.
And I think that also kind of lends nicely into knowing your worth and knowing what your business actually has to offer. A lot of people downplay what it is that they have to offer, and they don't give themselves enough credit. And I'm like, stuff that. What you're doing is bloody amazing.
Yeah.
Don't sell yourself short. Be confident in what you're offering, because you'll never have a successful business if you don't genuinely believe that you've got a good product.
And that's a very, very good point. And I think something that most people, and certainly in my experience, they've got the blinkers on with what it is they're actually doing. And they think, I'm just building houses, instead of transforming lives,
You are creating a whole dream. I remember Dan telling me years ago when he was doing his builder's license, there was a correlation between like a surgery, saving someone's life on a table. Dan's building the house that surgeon lives in.
Right.
That's putting stuff into context about how important it is about what we're doing for a living and for the people that we're working.
And that goes down to the sub-trades. You're part of that creation.
All part of
whether
that.
You're the concreter, the plasterer, the painter, the carpenter.
Yeah. And that's
You're all part of this big process to create someone's dream. So you are very important at what you do.
And one of the things that we're really trying to change, we're trying to change that narrative for the general population, because I feel like at the moment there's what we do and what tradespeople do is seriously undervalued. And that comes into play where margins are constantly questioned, often by clients, around what we can actually make, because we run a very, very tight ship, and one thing goes wrong and it could really affect us. So you really need to overcome that and focus on what you're doing and what you have to deliver and know your worth.
Yeah.
We're way off track here, I think.
Well, I don't know. Maybe not. I mean, I kind of agree with what Dani's saying. Like, if you really understand, your value, you understand what position you are, how much of an expert you are in something, then that's a big fear, remover.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden you're like, oh, hang on, I am talking about something that I'm an expert at.
Yep.
People are going to listen to this.
Make it till you make it.
Well, I think if you've already got a business up and running, you're already pretty good at what you do.
Yeah.
You're above the other person who just wants to rock up from 7 to 3:30 and get instructed. You're already putting yourself out there. You're trying to run a small business.
Right.
You're giving it a go. So why not get in front of the camera and put yourself more out there?
Or why not talk really confidently about that in an online forum or on your social media page, or talk to the world about how great you are and how great your business is on your website? How's anyone going to know otherwise?
Yeah, and that's a good point, I suppose. Like Dan, you were just saying, effectively, you've already done the hard bit. You set up your business. You've probably been to a startup stage where you had no money.
Yeah.
Like, now talking about the amazing projects that you deliver should be the easiest thing to do, right?
The fun part, because you're showing what you're doing. It's the best thing is when Dani and the girls do a photo shoot, when they come back and show what we've created over the last 12 months.
Yeah.
It's pretty special.
Yeah.
It is quite an exciting time of the process.
Yeah. One of the big things that a lot of the guys have troubles with, especially, is, and to be fair, it's sort of a double-edged sword, because when you're trying to ask a client if they do a testimonial for you, often they're quite afraid of the camera as well. So then you've got you that's afraid, they're that's afraid, and you can turn into a shitstorm. What's your experience with that? Because I know a lot of the guys out there, I mean, I'm always saying, get a video testimonial. And they're like, yeah, tried, couldn't get it. Well, I'm sure they didn't try. They're just telling me they did.
Yeah.
I think the thing with that is everyone's going to be nervous and very stiff for the first 5-10 minutes. Everyone's going to be, oh, what do we say? But then eventually everyone's going to start to loosen up. You know what? Maybe have a beer and a glass of wine. Get everyone a bit relaxed just before it. And then the conversation will start flowing. And you'll get better content as the longer the conversation goes.
Yeah, we've actually really found that candid content is some of the most engaging content that we produce. So
What does that mean?
So when it's in the moment, or there's a bit of a mistake that happens and everyone's giggling or laughing or a bit nervous, because people can relate to that, because that's how people actually feel every day. Authenticity is so key. Creating an authentic brand and then developing authentic content is one of the best things you can do for your business. There's no one's going to believe you if you've got everyone standing, oh, Red Door Project, they were so great. They delivered my project under budget and on time. No one cares about that. No one believes that, because it's not believable. I wouldn't believe that if I was watching it. I'd say they probably got actors in to do that. So creating those, if it's for reviews, for example, I'm already thinking about ways that we could do that with a job that we're kind of gearing up to hand over in the next month. Our clients are really fun. They've got 2 beautiful boys. The boys are going to be running through the house. They've already said how much they love this room, and I love those green tiles. Oh, this is going to be my room. Yet we're going to have bunks together because this room is so great. That's the stuff that I want to hear, I want to see, because it's real for starters and it's authentic, and you don't have to have people posing. You don't have to pose in front of the camera as a builder or a plumber.
But if they are a bit nervous and stiff, like you're going to have to coach them into this.
Potentially, but I think that's also around using the right people to produce that kind of content. Get one of your chippies there, or whoever
they know. Filming
you. Do a walkthrough with the client that's real and in the moment.
Yeah.
A lot of that content is going to be really, really valuable to use. You might have to edit it a little bit, but there'll be such good gold nuggets in there that will be really, really beneficial for you.
I think it kind of ties back to what we were saying before about, we can talk about being the experts because we are. Like, they can talk about being happy with the project because they are. They've got this amazing new house that you just built for them, and if you can find a way to capture that without it being awkward and just having a camera, can you just talk into the phone and tell me how good it is? Go. But of course, people are going to buckle when you do that.
Yeah, exactly. You have to make it really just comfortable for the types of people. Think about where you're most comfortable and where you can feel most comfortable talking about something that you love talking about. Everyone else has that as well.
And if you still, as a builder, have a lot of fear of the camera, what about on handover day when you're walking the clients through and showing them how everything works and how great everything is? Yeah. Have someone film that.
Yes.
A little bit back from where, they're 3 or 4 steps behind you.
Secret camera.
I mean, that'd be quite engaging.
Oh, it'd be such good content.
Just wear a GoPro.
GoPro, yeah. Or or just Big Brother style throughout the house. There's little cameras everywhere.
Yeah. Example of content that we could have gathered from this particular job, which I think is a really good takeaway. So little kids love big trucks and big equipment and stuff. So, we have a client who lives across the road from their site, and the little boys get out in their builder's costumes. They sit on the front fence, they watch the bin being delivered, and they ask where Builder Dan is.
Yeah.
That stuff is so cute. And we published some stuff on our stories and got the best feedback. It's just so wholesome and authentic and day-to-day stuff. And that is so easy to capture.
Beautiful. All right. Well, this has been great, guys. I suppose in terms of my lessons here in overcoming content is if you can create a strategy, create a plan when you're going into it, it keeps you on track and it keeps you you got less chance of getting clammed up and getting awkward in front of the camera. Second of all, at the end of the day, like you said, Dan, it's just a black device. It's sitting on a little tripod or it's leaning up against a wall or whatever. Don't be afraid of it. It's fine.
Yep.
And thirdly, if you're the expert at what you do, which you are and you should be, then at the end of the day, it's no different talking to the camera than it is talking to your customer and explaining to your customer what you're doing. Explain to the camera what you're going to be doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's as simple as it sounds so simple, but it actually is that simple.
And I think one thing to really remember, if it's not working or if it doesn't work, it's actually not failure. It's refinement. This is a journey and a learning experience, and you will find your groove. All you have to do is start.
Why don't we throw a challenge out there to the listeners and viewers and say, head across to the Facebook group over at the Site Shed and post a video. So post us a content video in the group. You can tag me, you can tag Dan, you can tag Dani. And there you go. You can post it. You record it on your phone, stick it in the group. We can all have a look at it. We can make fun of you. We can refine it. We can tell you how good it is.
Yeah.
It will help you overcome a fear of actually getting it done. And I reckon there's probably going to be about 5 to 10 people that will actually do this. So let's see who will.
All right.
I want to hear what you're passionate about.
Guys, this has been awesome. It's been a great conversation. I really appreciate the time. Dan, I know you are absolutely flat out at the moment recording with the block. Dani, I know you're even probably more flat out running the business while Dan's off on holiday. But guys,
not on a holiday, so still getting 100 calls from me.
So guys, I really appreciate the time. Thank you very much. It's been an awesome series, and that's pretty much wrapped up this topic of mastering storytelling. For the listeners and viewers out there, Dan and Dani are experts over at TradieMate Pro, which is a business coaching and mentoring program for tradespeople. They're coming on to teach more about what you've just heard. So it's going to be a fantastic resource for you guys, really getting good at telling your story and getting it out there, getting your story out there to your customers, potential customers, so on and so forth. Guys, really glad to have you involved with that. And guys, if you've got any questions, if there's anything you're not sure about, by all means, hit us up in the Facebook group. That's what it's there for. It's there to be, for a conversation. So when you see this podcast come out, if you have anything we haven't covered off on, if there's anything we haven't covered off on or anything you want more explanation on, by all means, just ask the question. The guys will be in the group. They'll be willing to answer, I'm sure. So let's wrap that up, guys. Thank you very much once again. We look forward to working with you again in the future. We'll see you over at TradieMate Pro.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you. See ya.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to thesiteshed.com where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from this show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.